Okay, here we go again. So this is part two of Sue Armstrong, Sue Rut Armstrong, I guess. And we got a lot done the last time, and we'll see how much we can get done this time. And so let's see here. Um, we'll start off with tell me about the places where you've lived.
Okay, the places that I can remember that we lived was in Kellogg, and Newton and Grand Junction and uh,
Fayette.
Fayette, right? And then when we moved from Fayette, I remember moving to Des Moines into Grandpa Clinton's house.
Right.
So I really don't remember too much about Grinnell because I really think I was still pretty young. The only thing I kind of remember about Grinnell, I think, if that was Grinnell and not Kellogg, was the stucco outside of the house.
Hmm.
But I don't know that I really remember Grinnell as much. But those are the places that I do remember living, and I liked our house in Newton
Yeah,
because it was,
I heard this is a nice house.
yeah, it was a beautiful house and it was a brand new house, so that was cool. But I did like the house, we had in Fayette, the second house. I mean, I liked where we lived the first one, but I felt like it was kind of crowded, but it was close to the school, and that's really what Dad needed. So, but I really liked the house in Fayette, and when we go back, I always enjoy going back and just looking at, even if it's the outside, because there's really some sad memories, but there's also good memories of that
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
So those
And
are the places
so
I remember.
I remember when we did move to Des Moines. For some reason, I don't know if it was because I was doing scout stuff or what the deal was, but I remember I stayed in Fayette a little longer than you guys did. You guys went all down to Des Moines without me.
Uh,
I
I don't
anyway,
remember that.
well, because I think that was the same summer that the Fayette Scout Troop went out to Colorado in the mountains and stuff like that. So I think I hung around with Dawn because Dawn was living in that house downtown,
Yes,
across from
yes,
the movie theater. Yeah.
yeah.
So I think I hung out with her for a couple weeks or something, and then I think when I came back from Colorado, I think they dropped me off in Des Moines. I think it was.
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember, but I do remember that we moved there in 1976.
Right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I do remember that, and we were trying to, make it our house instead of Grandpa's house, when we moved our stuff. But yeah, that was a good house too.
So when you got to Des Moines, then did you just stay with Mom in her bedroom or what?
Yes, Mom and I shared a bedroom until I moved out, because there really wasn't a bedroom for, she was going to put you downstairs,
Right.
and then she said, well, you can sleep with me, and we'll figure out how we can, wear your clothes, and but you'll sleep in the same bed with me. And so I was like, okay. And so I did that until I moved to an apartment that was closer to um, Merle Hay Holiday Inn. And I think that's when I moved in by myself. And then eventually, I think Shirley Shanks, one of my friends, she and she didn't, I mean, she would live there with me, but I don't think was really paying rent. It was closer because she was always driving to and from Boone.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
so,
I remember that. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, so when we would have late nights, or she and I would have to be up in the morning early, um, she would stay with me, and we would go to work together. It seemed like that's kind of where we lived. And then when, I finally moved out, but, while I was going to Grandview and going to Drake, I lived with Mom.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And it was mostly, to save money as well, because, I didn't have a whole lot of money, and
Yeah.
it was just convenient. But yeah, that Mom and I did share a room.
And now, did when was the whole working at a CNA at Newton? When was that? After we moved
That
to Des
was
Moines?
that was after I graduated,
Okay.
I think. I could, or was it oh man, I'm trying to think if that was before I started
Did
at
you live with
Drake.
Wilma then, or Wilma and Ralph, or what?
Yeah, because I stayed with Wilma and Ralph. I think I was going to Upper Iowa. I wasn't really ready for school in college. And so I think that's when I decided to move down and live with Wilma and Ralph. And I worked as a CNA at this nursing home. And then I got a place of my own. That didn't last very long. And then I decided I was really ready to go back to school. I believe that's how it all worked out. And
So
then I moved back and lived with mom and finished college.
yeah. So how did when did you get your CNA? Was that something that you just did at Newton then, or had you got that before that you went to Newton, or what?
I believe it was in Newton is when I got my CNA.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. If I wanted to work at this one nursing home, I had to get a CNA. So I got my CNA and um, I used that. I used that actually quite a bit because when I moved out here to Denver, I was having, I got out here and I thought I had a job with Holiday Inn and I didn't really have a job with Holiday Inn. They weren't expecting me. Here I had all my stuff. So, being the achiever that I am, I decided to get two full-time jobs. So, I worked at the Marriott on Hamden and during the day. And then at night, I would work as a nurse's aide in a nursing home um, in the hospice unit. Um, as a CNA. And so
Well,
it really did carry me through quite a bit being a CNA. I had to keep my certifications up, but I've let them go just because it's not for me anymore.
yeah. But I mean, you probably had to have those jobs just to pay for your rent and stuff.
Right, right. So that's why I got two jobs because I needed, I was living with a roommate, which that was a story another time, but I was living with somebody and I just needed to pay my bills plus, my rent. And so in order to do that, I had to work two full-time jobs, which was really tough. And basically, when I was working as a CNA at this nursing home in Des Moines, I mean in Denver, is where I worked with one of Bob's friends, and he introduced me to Bob, and that's how Bob and I got together.
I was gonna say, since we talked about this stuff, yeah, it sounds like a natural lead into you get to Colorado and somehow you got married.
Right. It was kind of hard. Bob had a hard time trying to get a hold of me because every time he would try to call me, I was always in bed sleeping because I only had a short window. In order to sleep, I would get done with a Marriott and then I would go home and go to bed. And then I'd have to get back up, so I could be at work by 11. And then I worked 11 to 7. And then went from there to the Marriott and I did that job until 5 or 6. And then I would go home and sleep, and for a while, I had called and talked to mom and, and she goes, well, maybe you just need to move back. And, and I was like, maybe, but anyway, then I met Bob finally, because when he called me, finally got a hold of me, I kept telling my roommate, if he calls, just, wake me up because he's never going to get a hold of me because I'm always sleeping. And so he called, and the last thing I remember him saying when we got done talking is he's like, well, if you ever need anything, let me know, because I've lived out here and I could help you if you need something and before we have our date. And I was like, okay. Well, I was so tired because I was working two jobs, that at my Marriott job is I was coring an onion and I put a paring knife through my hand. And so I called him and I'm like, hey, I don't know where I'm at, but I have to go back and get stitches out. And so I told him, and he's like, okay, well, I'll come pick you up and take you to the emergency room. And,
That's a great way to get to know each other in the emergency
yeah,
room.
yeah. Well, it was like Gates Memorial or Gates, emergency or something. So, I finally got back and he took me to there. And then um, after that, he was like, want to do dinner? And I'm like, sure. And so we did dinner. And I found out later because all of a sudden he was like, hey, I got to go home. I'm not feeling very good. And I was like, oh, okay. And so he took me home. Well, I found out that his lung had collapsed when we were having a date. And so he went home, and I never knew that for the longest time. But that's how we kind of met, and then we just started dating. And in hindsight, I think we should have dated longer than we did before he proposed to me. But as I say, it is what it is. And, we have really two good children out of it. And we're still good friends. So, but that's how that's why I stayed out here, is because I met him.
Yeah. There you go.
Because I was definitely ready to move back because it was just too much for me.
Sure. Yeah.
So.
You got to admit that'd be a great story if you ever write it down in a book.
Yeah, I know.
It's like, you're ready, you got to go to Colorado to work with Holiday Inn. It's like, oh no, I'm not.
Yes, I get there and I'm like with all my stuff, and they're like, we didn't know you're coming. We don't have a job for you. And I'm like, what? And so I eventually did go back to that Holiday Inn. It's not even there now. They've torn it down. But it was quite scary when I got out here and I, had all my stuff and and a place to live, but didn't have a job. So, I think that was also just, I feel, mom and dad's, you don't just, if you've got to do something, you've got to do it, and don't just like, I don't have a job, so now what do I do? You go out there and you persevere and you apply for jobs and you find one. And so it was good because I had a CNA, so I could do that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I could work, I had worked in a hotel. And so I was working in the banquet and catering office. And so, it's been good out here. But it's been quite an adventure, as my son-in-law would tell me.
Yeah. Oh, that's for sure. Okay. Cross that one off the list. What do you remember about when Mom and Dad had Mary Beth?
What do I remember about Mary Beth? Okay,
So
Mary Beth.
We're in Grand Junction.
We were in Grand Junction, and I remember she was just so cute, and I just loved her. And she was, small, and she was fun to play with. And I enjoyed it because I had another sister. And so I was pretty excited that, I had a sister that was going to grow up and, we could do things together. And didn't have her very long. But, the one thing that I swear will stick in my mind forever is, we all laid down for a nap on Sundays. That was just what we did as the Rutt family. And I was in my room. Mom had laid down with me, and Mary Beth was sick. And so I just said, me being the warrior, I swear this has always been what I do. And so I said, I'm going to go in and, check on Mary Beth to make sure she's okay. And Mom's like, okay. So I did. And when I went in and I looked at this, this metal crib, and it was in the same room as Dave's, and she wasn't breathing. And I ran in and I said, Mom, something's wrong with Mary Beth. She's not breathing. And so Mom went in, and, Mom and I talked about this throughout the years. And she said that was always one regret that she had, that she wished that she would have, gone in and checked and had me, because she said, for you to find, being in second grade, to find your sister dead, and it was crib death.
Well,
And so,
and how would a person know, you know?
right, but she was sick, and I just, was worried about her, and something just told me to go in and check on her. So, that was, I was very sad, not having a sister, because thinking I was going to have her for a long time, but that wasn't meant to be. So I remember her getting a lot of presents, and, we had a Christmas with her, and then 2 days later she died. And so, I don't have a whole lot of memories, but I do remember, playing with her and being really excited that I was going to have a sister.
Yeah.
And so, that's what I remember about Mary Beth. Um, what the other question was, Mary, what do I remember about mom and dad?
It was
Or,
just, what do you remember about when mom and dad had Mary Beth? That was my question. But
oh,
you
okay.
can talk about
Yeah.
whatever you want to talk about.
Okay. Well, I do remember when, I believe we were in Newton when mom and dad had Mary Beth. And I remember being in that house, and mom and dad had prepared us that, someday we may wake up and not be there because mom was going to have a baby. And I remember waking up and opening mom and dad's door, and they were gone. And I don't remember who was in the house with us, but they were having, she went to the hospital. So, I I was pretty excited that mom, was going to have another baby, and, it was a girl. And so I was really excited, because back then I didn't really understand that, or get it, that she had had another one, but it was before, I believe it was before me, I believe. So, but I was very excited that mom and dad were going to have a baby. Um, and so, they had him, and they had Mary Beth in Newton, and then she moved with us to Grand Junction. So, um,
Very good.
yeah.
Okay. My next thing, and you kind of got started on this some when we were talking earlier. I just have tell me about your experiences at college, Grandview, and Drake. So, like you said, you had been a CNA, and then you
Mhm.
kind of decided. And again, when you were in high school, you had helped like in a kindergarten classroom at the high school.
Right. Yes. In high school, I remember her name still, Mrs. Stevens, and she was awesome, and she was very encouraging. And she's like, Sue, you need to be a kindergarten teacher. You're so good with kids. And I love doing that, especially when I was in high school, because, I didn't have to go to study halls. I could just go in and help, Mrs. Stevens, and she would give me projects, and I would get to work with kids. And, it was great. I loved it. And that's really what made me decide that I really wanted to be a teacher, was, you know, um, being with Mrs. Stevens. I wanted to be a Mrs. Stevens. She
Okay,
just had so much energy, so much love for children. And so, that was just that's why I decided I wanted to be a teacher. So when I went, I wanted to start, we decided it was be better to start at Grandview, that was just a smaller college.
smaller, yeah, setting, yeah.
And so when we moved to Des Moines, I went to Grandview and got a lot of my basics out. And that's when I also, the one thing I remember about Grandview is Mr. Stromberg.
Oh, Dick Stromberg,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and that's where I met him, and he was my voice teacher. And I was in the choir, and I got to go, on tours with the choir when we was at Grandview, and I thought that was the best thing, because we stayed at people's houses. They were so gracious, and they fed us well. And, being on a bus traveling, with your friends and getting to know people, and then singing, I love that. Um, that was, I think, one of my highlights about Grandview is,
Cool.
I got my basics out, but I really, I loved singing with Mr. Stromberg and the choir, and going on tour. That was amazing. And then going to Drake, was much bigger. But I was very involved in, the education courses and really enjoying those. And working down at the library at Drake with Vi and Florence. I can't
That was
remember the.
that was a work study job. Is that kind of how you got into it?
No, it was a job that I just got paid for
Oh, okay.
because mom worked there, and I it would help with some of the things that I needed to purchase, because it seemed like all of my classes, it would be, okay, well, you need to buy this book, you need to buy this thing for curriculum, you need to buy, and so it helped, buy those things. But it also was a way for me to learn AV, and I could also do homework, which was great. While when if people didn't need me, or I didn't need to laminate anything, or I didn't need to clean out one of the, I got to know the fine arts people quite well, because they were always in there listening to tapes and listening to music and studying, and so that was pretty awesome. But I was able to use all of the laminating. I did a lot of laminating for my school, which was great. So I didn't have to pay for it. But it was a to me it was a great way to get to know people, but also work. And Florence and Violet were just the nicest people ever. They would, give me hours. They would also, leave, and they'd say, okay, you lock up. And, but it was a great way for me to study and to get my homework done and
Yeah.
make money.
Yeah.
So it taught me a lot of things, because when I got out of college, I think for 1 year I worked at a junior high school in Ankeny, I believe it was,
Okay.
because that's when I moved there, and I worked as an AV technician or whatever at this junior high school, and I was in charge of all of the AV equipment and helping kids learn how to record and how to set up things. And but I only did that for 1 year, and then I thought, okay, this is not for me. I don't want to do this anymore. So I think that's when I decided to um I can't remember when I graduated. I think then I did a little subbing when I was in Newton, because I had an apartment. I did a few subbing jobs in Newton, and then I was applying for jobs, couldn't really get jobs, and so I decided to do the hotel industry thing. And I was going through the hotel um, manager program and learning the front and back of the Holiday Inn. So I think that's when I met Shirley, and then I also um, met Mr. Butler, and they were helping me learn everything: being a bartender, being a cook, being a hostess, being a housekeeper, being a director of housekeeping. I don't know if that's where I got my OCD of cleaning all the time.
I think that was probably just you, Sue.
um, but I have to tell you, just to set the record straight, is since I've had my aneurysm and stroke, I don't clean as much as I did before.
Wow, that's a big
It could
change.
it could be old. I'm getting older, but I do not clean my house every weekend like I had to. I just feel like I don't need to. It's just me, and I would rather spend my time, if I can, with Danielle and Keith and Gabriel.
Well, you can't beat that.
No, so anyway, so I did that for quite a while, working, at the hotel, and I spent a lot of time. And I remember mom, we would call me, I would be working, and mom would call me, and she's like, I just want to know how you're doing. I don't ever talk to you. And, you don't ever come over to the house. Are you okay? And sometimes she would just pop in at Holiday Inn just so she could see me. And, um, I thought, man, that's so strange. Why does she just not worry? Why is she worrying about me? But now the tables are turned, and there are things, it's much better. I I hear from Pat every week now. It's pretty awesome. He calls me every week, and and I usually talk to Danielle and Keith, at least, texting, or she, Google Duos me, or, I hear from Danielle, usually once if a day, if not once every other day. So, but, because I know they're busy, but I'm like, man, wonder how they're doing. And so I think of that, because I'm like, mom used to do that with me. And I was like, that's so strange that she keeps asking how I'm doing, but I
I
don't ever
know.
see
It's like she always wants a letter in her mailbox, or she wants a this or that, and so
right. And so I think of that with her, because I think, she, um, she just wanted to know, she cared.
yeah,
And I never call her, because I was just busy. And I was at that point in my life where I thought, I can take care of myself. I don't need her.
exactly.
But um, kind of comes full circle now.
Yeah. Well, so again, just to set the record straight, you are a college graduate of Drake,
I am. I am a college graduate from Drake with a BSc in education and a minor in early childhood.
and I'm sure they call you every year wanting to know when you're going to give them that big check.
Right, right. They don't call me anymore.
Oh, well, lucky you.
I know. Yeah, no, I don't. I like to go down and see the college whenever I am in Des Moines, but that's not very rare anymore. So,
I'll give them your number next time they call me.
okay. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, that's what brothers are for.
Yeah.
Okay, what's a good story about Dave?
I,
I don't know why I don't know why I didn't put John in here, but so if you got any John stories, you can throw that in there too.
yeah.
I mean,
You
we of
know,
course in our family lore, we know the best story between you and John is him bugging you in the bathrooms.
exactly. That
When,
was probably the most embarrassing thing ever, and he thought it was the funniest thing ever.
yeah, it's like
Um,
because we're a big camping family when we're growing up, and so you
right.
know if we were looking for Sue, you usually in the bathrooms at the campgrounds for some reason.
That's because I always wanted to, put makeup on and be beautiful.
Ah,
Even if I was camping, I must look, presentable.
yes. And so
It's a girl thing.
John would open up the door and bellow, and is my sister in there, or something like
Yeah,
that, right?
right. And then I would be totally embarrassed, like, John, I can't believe you just did that. But he always seemed to, as growing up, I do remember with John, especially, he loved to bug me. He loved to just tease me, or you know um do things that was embarrassing, because I think he thought it was funny, and I used to always get very annoyed with him. I did find a picture in this Kellogg, uh, a photo album of him when we lived in East Green, and John brought his tuba and was playing it in the library at East Green, and the librarian was telling him that he can't be practicing in the library
There's
in
a story
Grand
I'd never
Junction.
heard of that one.
Why? And I hadn't seen the picture, so I was like, well, this is so John. And and then the other just memory I have of John is, especially when he was moving from apartments to apartments, and not taking care of himself, and he would either be high or very low. And sometimes, I would tell him things, and he just got very good at telling us what we wanted to hear, and he wasn't really being truthful. And that is just something that I try to be very careful with my children. I don't think I am at the same, level that John was, but, you know, um, just be truthful, and I just, John wasn't taking care of himself, but he also, he would call no matter what, he'd call every day, and half the time, you couldn't get a word in edgewise, and other times you had to pull teeth just to talk to him. So
Right.
those are just some of the memories, I have, but um, I do remember John just, I swear he loved to tease me about anything and everything. And he was always reading. Um, and the one story that I think comes back to me is when mom was at Wesley Acres and she moved in, and we were all there helping her, and John and his usual self was sitting in a chair and was sleeping, and all of a sudden Danielle and Laura decided to yell fire alarm, and I thought Dave was going to kill those two girls. He's like, you don't say that kind of stuff. And they thought it was the funniest thing, but it woke John up. So, but that's kind of, some of the memories I have of John. He was always reading. He always had stacks of books all over his room. He,
His room's always messy.
Yes, he always had a messy room, and I'd even try to go clean it up when I remember when we were in Grand Junction, and I would get very frustrated because John always had such a messy room, and he had piles everywhere in his room, and he didn't care. And
And
so,
he knew that was going to be the way he lived the rest of his life.
yes, right. So
Yeah.
that's kind of, some of the memories I have of John.
And let me throw in real quick for people that hopefully are watching this that know John. When you use the terms high and low, you don't mean as far as drug use. You're
No,
talking about that he was manic depressive, and so
yes,
when he was manic, he would verbalize a lot more.
right,
He'd have these big plans that he was going to do this and that and the other, and then like you say, when he was depressed, you couldn't get a hold of him. You couldn't get a word out of him.
hmm
You never hear from him.
hmm
So yeah, so when
right,
Dave and I and you talk about John being high and low, it has nothing to do with drugs. It has everything to do with him being manic depressive.
right, 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 very much so. He did
Anyway,
not do
yeah, go ahead.
drugs.
Move on to Dave.
And then Dave was pretty, I mean, I really, Dave and I, especially when we were in Fayette, and he was, he had this Volkswagen car thing that he would like to drive around. He would work at the college in Upper Iowa and work in the snack bar, and I'd love to go over and help him or go see him. I would go to his frat parties, and he and I would we would do things. Sometimes they were just wild, or he I remember in Fayette we had a cabinet in our kitchen on Water Street, and I always knew where this rum was, and so I'd say, Dave, you want to make me a drink? And he's like, sure. And so he would make me a drink, or he would take me to Shakey's for my 18th birthday, or I would drive down to see him when he was a scout. And so we had lots of good chats. And I also remember Dave when I was in high school, and because dad had passed away and I just didn't understand math at all. Math was so hard for me. And we would sit at the table and we'd sit for hours, and he would try to explain to me about math. And I just, I couldn't, once I got it, but there were times that, it was very frustrating for Dave because he was trying to help me understand how to do my math problems. Um, uh, so, there's lots of memories with Dave, just growing up and him being in scouting and working, working at the snack shack, going to college. Him and Don got together, very busy. Um, we would have fun in our camping trips. He'd always wear this green or this hat that I've seen him in some of the pictures, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that hat that he used to always wear wherever he would go, even when he was at scouting. So, I think we've had lots of adventures. He's just always been one that I can, I can talk to, and he's a good brother.
And he was always, as brothers go, yeah, John was the book smart guy. Dave was always the cool guy.
Yes, right, exactly. Dave was my cool brother. So, I always liked to hang around him, especially when he would go to, because I was excited about going to college and I wanted to, learn like kind of what you do. But, when I first started out of high school, I just was not ready to start going to college. So mom was like, well, I'm not going to waste money if you're not going to, put everything to it. So maybe you just need to take a year or two off. And I was glad I did, because that year really helped me understand that I really didn't want to do being a CNA the rest of my life. I really wanted to teach, and then, student teaching was really fun. When I student taught in Urbandale with that teacher, she gave me a lot of wisdom, a lot of encouragement. Um, I loved teaching. It was great. But all I could get was subbing jobs, and it was all right. But it wasn't what I really had envisioned. So that's when I kind of decided I was going to move after I was in the hotel industry. I was going to move. And I had met this guy that had come to the Holiday Inn. He stayed there, and I can't even remember. I think he worked for Goodyear, but he came and he's like, you should move to Colorado. And I was like, well, that sounds kind of fun, and so that's when I decided to move, thinking, I would have at least one friend. And I got out here, and he would see me once in a while, but it was nothing like I had thought. And so, I kind of had to figure out things myself, and decide if this is really where I wanted to stay. So,
And again, you hit looking for a teaching job when it was probably the hardest time to get a teaching job, because there were just no jobs to be had. I mean, that's even what happened
right.
to Tierney. I mean, she got out of UNI in '82, and she went to Des Moines, and she kind of did like you. She would work on the weekends at Executive Inn, and then during the she would sub in the school districts during the week. And
Hmm.
she always knew she had the money from Executive Inn to pay for her rent. And then any
Right.
subbing job she got, that was for the rest of
Right.
the stuff. So,
Right.
I mean,
And
and
that's
yeah,
kind of
she did that for a year, and then she moved back home because there just weren't,
right.
there just weren't a lot of. Of course, now uh, I think it's a little better for Sarah looking for
Hmm.
teaching jobs. It's there aren't as many people going into education as there should be, or.
Hmm. Right. Right. Yeah, I think it's a little easier to get a job now, but not there were just so many teachers that there just weren't jobs available. And so, I mean, I got a couple of interviews, but I never got the job. So that's why I was like, well, I've got to survive. And so that's why I thought, well, I'll just go do the hotel industry. And really, the hotel industry worked well even when I came out here, because, I was able to, work as a reservations manager, and I worked as a catering manager, and, I was able to make it work. Even after, Bob and I had got married, I worked, at the Embassy Suites, and I used my hotel experience, because I worked at the Sheraton, and I worked, at the Holiday Inn. And but it just, once we had kids, it really, the hotel industry is not for a person that has children,
Yeah,
because you
right.
weekends and you work nights and you work holidays. And I didn't want to be without my family during those times. So that's
Mm,
when I kind of decided, I needed to get out of the hotel industry, which is why I did.
yeah. Okay. Okay. Ta-da! It's my turn. So,
Okay.
stories about
Yes.
Tom.
Okay. So, you you were just always energetic. You were very involved in scouting. I remember your Eagle project that you had, in Fayette, and you worked really hard on that trail. You were always, you were doing music.
Mom kept
You
bugging me all the time. What are you doing now?
Yeah. And I just feel like you kind of, you know, um, you kind of followed, like Dave, because he was cool. Um, I don't really have too many memories of you and John, because I think you were just very outgoing. John was more of, wanting to uh stay at home and read. And but you were, always busy. You were playing in, you know, doing things in school, the plays. You would, and I always, felt like you were more grounded than, sometimes when I just needed, somebody to talk to, or you just kind of didn't care what people thought. You just did your own thing. And but you were very involved in music. That's the one thing, you have always been involved in music. And you, when you decided to play the trombone, which I always thought was the coolest thing, because that's what Dad played. And for the longest time, I think until we moved to Des Moines and Mom's house got broken into, you were playing Dad's trombone, right?
I was, and
Yeah.
I put it in the locker room at Roosevelt when I was football manager, and one of the football guys stole it. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I thought it was they stole it from our house in Des Moines.
Nope, nope. They had it. They were wearing a big long coat. One of the other managers told me this later how it happened, and he actually told me how I could go down to the pawn shop and try and get it back. But it's like whatever, people. But by then I already had a new trombone.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I do remember that I was so happy that you were playing my dad's trombone. Um,
Well, see, and that's what I
and
always tell kids. They ask me, about which instruments to pick, and I said, well, I never had that problem because my parents just said, "Here's a trombone. That's what you're going to play."
right. Well, and I feel like that's what they did with me, is they said, not that they didn't have I wanted to play the flute, and Dad
No, I didn't
was like,
know that really.
yeah, I wanted to play the flute or the clarinet. And Dad was like, no, the flute's too hard for you. You're going to play the saxophone. I
Oh,
tried the
really?
clarinet. Yeah, I tried the clarinet. That didn't go so well. The flute was, you had to, the blowing, on the flute was just not what he just,
You would have
it was
been
like,
fine.
but he's like, no, you're going to play the saxophone. And so that's how
Oh,
I got
brother.
the saxophone. Was Dad was like, no, you're going to play the saxophone.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what
And
he did to
so,
Dave too. Because didn't Dave want to play percussion or something? And Dad's like, "Here, you're gonna play trumpet."
yeah, yeah. Dad kind of had the say of, like what we were going to play. I mean, I loved it that we were a musical family,
Right.
and, but you were always my little brother. And, I thought you were just so cool because, I was not the youngest one, you were. But you just, you were always helping people. And I remember even, in school, if somebody needed help, you were always helping them. And and then I remember in Fayette, which some of these are like really silly that I remember these things, but I remember when you had to have your tonsils out, and I felt so bad for you because you were in so much pain. But Mom would be like, here, have some ice cream, or have a popsicle. And then I think it was Dr. Lingy had to come
Yeah.
to the house because you were really sick and
Oh.
not well. But I do remember you just, always, sometimes we would just be chatting, like at the house. And that's one thing I do remember, is whenever we'd have our meals, it was like our meals was the time to, tell what we'd all done. I mean, we'd all get to talking about our day, and, Mom would say, how was your day? Or, Dad would be, how was your day? And poor Tom sometimes couldn't get a word in edgewise. And so he'd be sitting there with his arm up, like, can I speak? Or you'd say, can I have the floor? And Dave would say, sure, lay down. And so um you kind of, sometimes I felt, always got the short end of the stick because we were all chatting and you just would sit there and listen. And every once in a while you'd say something, but we were all always busy talking. So
Exactly.
um
Well, and I guess I always felt like um, I, I got the good end of the deal because I got to see how John and Dave and you kind of lived your life, and I could kind of decide, let's see, I'm going to go this way, or they went this way, or I'm going to go try this way.
right,
So I always,
right.
I mean, I always kind of looked at it that way. That was kind of nice to have you guys be out there in front of me to kind of see what things you could do.
You're right. what things we did. And if we got in trouble, you'd be like, okay, I'm not going to do that
That's
because
for sure.
that didn't work out. So we were kind of the, the guinea pigs because you could see which worked and which didn't. And so, with mom, it'd be, or I don't know. I mean, honestly, you were still pretty young, I think, when dad died, weren't you?
Yeah, I was 10.
So, I don't know, that I have too many memories of you and dad. But I remember I've run across this picture of you in like a little race car thing, and I like, oh yeah, I remember that. And you'd have this shirt on, and I think it was a Snoopy shirt, and it just is like, oh yeah, that's Tom, So,
And my
um,
cowboy boots.
and your cowboy boots, right?
Yeah.
So,
Okay, how about a story about Uncle Jack?
um,
And again, Jack is married to Lois, who is mom's sister.
right. I Jack was I really cared about Jack a lot. And going out and seeing Jack and Aunt Lois, I would always remember how, he would say things and it would just, frustrate Aunt Lois sometimes. And I can't remember the word he used to say, but
You
he would
say Picket
always,
Wilson.
yeah, Pickett Wilson, yeah. And so I'd always be like, that's kind of rude, but he had opinions, and um he I went out one time, and this is something that's really, mom is really the only person that kind of knows about this, so I'm not sure I want to share this if you're going to share it with everybody else, but it was,
Then you can just leave it to
yeah,
yourself. That's
I
fine.
think we'll just let it, because it was something that was very uncomfortable. And uh I loved them, but I just, something happened, and it kind of changed my thought of Jack.
Okay.
He was very, very kind, very understanding. I enjoyed thoroughly when I would, go out there to see Aunt Lois and Uncle Jack. And the one thing I think I got when I went out a couple of times was they always told each other, and they would tell me that they loved me. And that is something that, after I'd gone out there a couple of times, I came home and I said to mom, they say they love each other all the time. And um and so, we don't say that. And she's like, well, you know that I love you. And I said, I get that, but I just, it's important to me that you tell me that, when I tell you that I love you, that you say it back. And so that's the one thing I swear I got from Aunt Lois and Uncle Jack, is between that and liking to go get my nails done or my hair done. I got that from Aunt Lois, because she was always doing that. However, Aunt Lois never drove, and so Jack would always have to, take her to the beauty salon. But and I loved when Aunt Lois would play the piano. She just played with such compassion, and uh, she just sang, and her singing and her piano playing. That is one memory I think I will never forget about Aunt Lois.
Yeah. Yeah. So when did you go out and see Lois and Jack Block? 'Cause it seems like, was that more towards after high school or before?
Yes.
Okay.
It was at high school, yeah,
Okay.
that I would fly out there, because we didn't really fly too much, but I went out there because I wanted to get to know Aunt Lois and Uncle Jack. And I think I spent a New Year's Eve, I think, out there one time.
Okay.
And I remember going to where Sal and Lynn lived. It wasn't in where Jack and Lois lived, but we went there and had shells, oysters, and I remember that was pretty fun, and I really enjoyed going out and visiting them. And they always
Cool.
treated me, just like royalty, and just, we had good conversations, and we'd go do things. And but yeah, Uncle Jack would always go, Pickett Wilson. I'd be like, whatever.
Well, that was kind of the cool thing about Lois and Jack. It seems like um, later on, um, as they were able to start being retired or whatever, they would always make it a point to come out and see granddad and mom in the summers.
Mhm. Right, right. And so that was always, I know grandpa always really enjoyed when they would come out and, spend time with grandpa, and it was always nice to see him. And, they came out here, and would see Barry and Donna. And then I think there was a one or two times they came out and drove out here. And I think I was having a garage sale or something, and they came out so they could see where I lived. So, Jack and Lois at one time did see where I lived, and I'm still living here. So,
And finally, Uncle DeWitt,
oh man,
who is
DeWitt,
whose mother's brother.
yes, DeWitt was odd. Um, um, every time I would go
Yes, he
down,
was.
I would go down to grandpa's to help him with Iowa State Fair. I swear he would get up really early and he'd play his bugle downstairs, wake me up, or he'd come in to where I had the door shut, but between where I would sleep, and he would still walk in and he'd sit down. He's like, okay, now Shoshan, we're going to do some Hebrew. And I'm like, no, we're not. Get out. And I would tell grandpa about it, and he's like, oh, that's just DeWitt. I'm like, as a girl, I don't appreciate that. But he was just odd. I never felt really comfortable with him. And where he'd come to the table and he'd start laughing, and I'm like, what are you laughing about? Nobody's saying anything. Or he'd just look at you. So,
I know, yeah. I
and then,
mean, and he would call you Shoshan because apparently that was your name in Hebrew.
right, right,
Oh, and the fact that you were left-handed and he was left-handed.
right. And so that was a good thing too. But, he just felt like I needed to know Hebrew and I needed to know how to write it. And I also, I should go by Shoshan and not Sue. And I said, no, my mother and father named me Susan. And so my name is Sue. And he's like, well, but your name is Shoshan. And I'm like, and no, it is not. So he would just was, he didn't really, I know Heidi's got much different
Yeah,
opinion
I'm
of,
glad that Heidi had a good relationship with him because yeah, we
I just didn't, I
he
just
was
did
just
not
he
have
was
a
just
good,
his own bird, that's for sure.
yeah, I just didn't have a good relationship with him. And honestly, I don't have very fun memories of him because even as a child, he scared me. I didn't connect to him. And
And
then,
that's all
you know,
I throw it out there.
and he was so rude to mom, and that would upset me.
Well, yeah, and again, it seemed to be who's ever in power, that's who he would kind of go back against when he was living with granddad, and granddad was the person who owned the place. Granddad would get all the grief, and then when mom took
Right.
granddad's place, then mom was the one who got the grief from DeWitt. Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly. And that just was very frustrating, because I just, I was like, you're being rude and quit, stop it. So
yeah.
I don't really have a whole lot of memories of DeWitt other than him just coming in and wanting to teach me Hebrew, at 3 or 4 in the morning when I was in high school, and, I being woke up by him or playing his bugle.
I know. And well, that's kind of why I put it down for your questions because I knew you and DeWitt kind of had a conflicted history there.
Yes, yes. We never really bonded.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm still shocked to this day that I actually got him to part with some of his money for a candy bar for the Roosevelt band
Wow, that's
because
impressive.
yeah, because he DeWitt was notoriously tight.
Yes. And he would get dented cans and he would, go through people's garbage and bring it home. And, I always felt bad for mom because I'm like, oh my gosh, no wonder you've got bugs and stuff down there because, you know, that was DeWitt. So,
Okay, let's move on to good stuff. A good story
yes.
about mom.
Oh, mom. She was awesome. She once I got her, to where I'd say, Mom, you can tell me you love me. I got her to do that. And growing up, I didn't feel like she really, understood what I was going through. But the older I got, the more I understood. She really understood, and family was very important to her. Church was very important to her, and she wanted to make sure, especially, after Dad died, that we all stayed very connected to church.
And again,
Um,
in talking to John, you know, now when you look at Mom, you can kind of understand why she was the way she was, because that's the way her mother was to her.
right, right, right.
Grandma Clinton was not a huggy feely person, as I understand it.
No, and neither was Grandpa.
No.
Neither one of them were.
When she
And,
says to you that
and
statement,
and
I don't have to tell you I love you because you know it.
right,
And
and that's
that's the way
where,
she was brought up.
right. And so I think that is her thing of, you know she just felt like we all knew that we were loved, and we're a family. And I always enjoyed growing up as being a family that went to church together. We supported one another. We, in school activities, in scouting, in our vacations. Um, she always, to me, gave everybody the benefit of the doubt. She she accepted people for who they were, and she would do anything for them, if she could. And that is something, I remember about Mom. I have great memories of camping with Wilma and Ralph and the Franklins and the Miles, and with us as a family, camping in our Winnebago, going, she just always was there for us. um, and the one thing I would remember is when Dad died, she just, I never really saw her cry. And the only time I really saw her emotions and crying was when she lived with me, and she would just, lay in the bed in where she was staying at my house, and she would cry because she was just so tired. And so she just kept, I can't do this anymore. And that was just not Mom. um, but I think she was just worn out. But I do remember as a kid, of her, you know, um, always supporting me, always helping me. She would sew dresses for me. She would, she was involved in Rainbow Girls, and she, even when I tried 4-H, she was there for me. She, in school, she was just always there. And I just have so many memories of Mom, and growing up with her, and even and playing with us, and we'd play games. And but I think the one thing I do remember is our family vacations, and our camping trips. you know um and then Mom getting involved in church, and bells, and choir, and PEO, um, going out to lunches, with her friends. She was just never home. And when we finally decided that we needed to get her a voice message machine, because when any of us would call, she was never home, because she was always out doing things, and it didn't matter what time of day it was. If it was at night, she'd play in the Des Moines Symphony, playing the cello. And I've even shared with Gabriel. I keep telling him every once in a while, I'm like, oh, your grandma would be so proud of you, because you like music. And he's got this little piano. And Mom would have just so enjoyed being with Gabriel, and loving him, and praying for him. And faith was very important to Mom, her faith journey. And so I have a lot of good memories of Mom.
Well,
And
I mean,
I'm
I'm glad that it actually worked out. That between you and her, we finally decided there's a point in Mom's life where she needed family, and
mhm,
so we got her out there to Colorado with you.
right.
And I
And
think
that is something.
that really worked out well. I mean,
Yeah.
that was very nice of you to open your home to do that, you know, and
Right.
I think you're glad you did it.
I am so glad I did it. And I tell people that. I said, the time, yes, there were some times it was very frustrating, and towards the end, she was just getting heavy, and I was having a hard time moving her, or, I was afraid I was going to drop her. And I had really good caregivers, but, I don't never regret her moving out here. I was glad when she finally decided, at one point, that she was so lonely and she was losing, a lot of her friends at Wesley Acres. And so she decided she wanted to move out here. And so I cherish all of that time that I got to be with her and
Yeah,
to spend the last days with her.
yeah,
So I think that's one of the hard things, with me now is, I still miss her.
yeah.
So, but I have a lot of memories of her.
Is this where you
Just,
wanted to throw in that letter you found that she wrote?
oh, yeah. I mean, I don't want to read the whole thing, but it just sounds like mom.
Yeah, go
Uh,
ahead. Go ahead and start and tell people what you
it
found.
says, we need you in big capital letters. And it said, Mrs. June Rutt, at every Women's Society of Christian Service meeting for the next 11 meetings, you are welcome to come to the evening division of more convenient or come to both. Now wait a minute before you start to throw this in the circular file commonly called the wastebasket. Give us 2 minutes of your time. Yes, I said 2 minutes. Let me tell you what my wish. Anybody knows it's not good business to have your name in the red. So come on now and let's clean up those pages and get us out of the red. A word of explanation as to the color of your name at the top of this page might be in order at this point. If you were, and she underlined it, at the first meeting, then your name is on the blue side of the page. But if it's in red, you forgot our first meeting and we're waiting to change it at the next monthly meeting. Now it's your turn.
And again, this is
We
mother
and
sent a note to all these ladies.
Yes, we have 67 names on our newest date book membership, and we could have 98 according to our church membership. But we don't want your name. We want you. And she put that in red letters, big. Now here's how to help and gain. As you are one of these that should be with us, we'd enjoy your company and know you would ours. So give us a try. And then she gives the time. Now, if you're still with me, are there some of the excuses you've heard or used? Or just thank me with a half a minute about the statement. Then she gives different things. And then she goes, don't give me the WSCS church officers, minister, or anybody else, the Dickens, which mom used to say. Every woman in the church is receiving this letter. I'm not picking at anyone. I'm just hoping to inform you about the WSCS and get you interested in joining with us. Give us a little and you'll get a lot. Remember, and then she put a blue star on the paper. And she goes, if you want to do anything badly enough, you will do it. Does that not sound like mother?
And again,
Finally,
that sounds very much like what something Granddad Clinton would have written, to put in a church bulletin or something. And that's just the way he would phrase things. So that's kind of, I can see why mom would write something like that, because that's very much like what Granddad Clinton would do.
exactly. Yeah. It says, finally, I'm winding up now for this time. If you need a car or a pinprick, give June Rhett, your minister or officer or of your group, a ring on the phone. Your secretary of promotion in WSCS and interested party, June Rhett.
Yeah, she was definitely about promotion.
And so that was mom. I mean, even if she would call people like to be greeters at church, she would give them kind of the Dickens if they didn't want to, they were too busy. Like, well, you can give me some time. And that was just mom. And so she there in that respect, I do feel like she got that was part of grandpa,
Oh,
you know.
very definitely much. Yeah.
Yeah, so but I found that letter and I was like, oh my goodness, this is so mom writing it, because she's not going to take no for an answer, so you might as well just buck up and just do it, because she's going to be on your case if you don't keep up.
I know. It's like you should definitely copy that and send that to Donna Reams or Sherry Mullen, because I'm sure
Yeah.
they would read that and they'd say that is definitely June.
Yes, and I might do that, because that was when I found that last night. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so mom.
Yeah, you
So
share that with Joni too, because Joni would appreciate that, I bet.
yeah, and and I honestly, and I had really good caregivers. Mom really liked Joni, and she loved uh Joni. And she liked Carol. Carol always made her really good meals. Connie, because Connie always called her honey,
Honey.
and honey, now honey. And so she would always, really. The other ones, they were okay, but those were not mom's favorites. And
Yeah.
and then as mom got older, and she didn't like Denver at the very end, and I'm like, but mom, you don't ever go out, out in out without one of us, but she would love to sit on the porch and watch the cars or the squirrels, or why sometimes I have bunnies in my yard, and she would, that she'd say, that's Peter Cottontail. And I'm like, oh. And so she would just love the porch. So I was really glad that, mom had some money, that Dave was able to help, with her money, and put this porch up. And really it has had value. But, to this day, I still can't really go out and sit on the porch. Like, people keep saying, go sit on the porch like your mom used to. And I'm
Yeah.
like, can't do that.
Yeah.
I
Maybe
just can't.
someday.
Yeah, someday maybe, but it's just, uh, I can't do that. So
Okay. Yes, like you said, you could talk for hours about mom, but let's move on.
yes.
Good story about dad.
Dad, I one of the things that I was thinking about is, I remember, and I want to say it's in Kellogg. We had that house and there was a hill on the back of our lawn, and dad would he'd like, his photography was between his photography and camping and music, that was his thing. And he would say, come on, and I'm going to take a picture of you. So I had this pretty red dress, and dad would take a picture of me, and I still have that picture, that
Oh,
him, and
cool.
he had I remember him having a dark room in the house in Fayette, on Water Street, and he loved being there and do pictures and do slideshows of, he'd always do a slideshow of our vacation. And camping, I would love to go with him, to Waterloo, and we'd look at campers, and we'd come back, and we'd be all excited about, the camper that we found in Airstream. And, then he'd tell mom, and, mom being the person that was very, I don't know, frugal, if that's the right word, but very like,
Yeah, that's the right word.
now Raymond, let's do that when we retire. And we'll just keep the trailer we have, but he was, camping was a big deal. And I remember going on so many trips, and our vacations in the summertime, that was a big thing. We'd all get in the Chrysler, or and we'd pull our trailer and we'd go to different places. And and when grandma would come out on the Greyhound, and she'd go with us, and she'd always have her purse, now Charles Raymond, I'm going to pay for it. And she'd say, like, no, mama, I'm going to pay for it. And,
This usually
he was
happens at
always,
Dairy Queen, usually.
yes. And he was always, just so like to take care of, of his mom. And he was very, he was very involved in school, and very proud that he built the elementary school in Fayette. And um, so, being a superintendent of schools, um, playing or being a director, in the choir
Choir
at
director,
Faith.
right?
So music was very important, but family was very important to him too. And I loved my dad, and it was hard when he died.
Died too young.
He definitely 49 was way too young, and then I was just amazed that none of you or Dave um, had heard, that he knew the night he was going to die
Yeah,
was,
interesting story.
he and I had that conversation, and he was right. But, Dad always took care of Mom and us as a family, and made sure that we had gas in the car and everything was going to be fine. And, so losing your father when I was in seventh grade was really hard. Um, but I had so many I have camping memories. I have music memories, being in him directing, him playing, his trombone. Just, he and Mom were a team. And, or I would remember him coming up and Mom was trying to balance the checkbook, and he'd come in, and he'd be either laying on the bed or he'd come up to do something, and she'd say, "No, Raymond, I can't balance this. It's not working." And he'd be like, "June, it this way." And he'd figure it out, or Mom would figure it out. But he was always, involved. Mom usually was the one that took care of the bills and would put, all the money in the envelopes. And, but if she couldn't figure something out, she'd say, "Charles Raymond, I can't figure this out," and so Dad would help. But I just remember, and the other thing is I remember in the summer, because he was superintendent of schools, especially in Newton and Fayette, I do remember, he would volunteer his children to go and move boxes and, get the supplies in the rooms for the teachers. And that was never an option for us. It was, "You will do this. And once we get done with dinner, we're all going up and we're going to do this." And so sometimes I got frustrated, like, "I don't want to do this." And, he's like, "I don't care. You need to go. You're going, we're all going, and we're going to get this done." And that was just it. So, church and school and music, camping, I just have really good memories of Dad.
Very good. Okay. What's your favorite book or types of books?
My favorite book, one is Heidi. I
Really?
remembered, yeah. I always liked that book, was Heidi. My favorite movie is Sound of Music.
Oh, very good choice.
I love Sound of Music. Every time it comes on every year, I always have to watch it because I just love that movie. And the kind of books that I like right now are kind of romantic books. I like to read different
Sure.
romantic stories, family oriented. I'm not into mystery or anything like that, but
Sure.
I don't really have a favorite book, other than just because I'm just now starting, like every once in a while, I'm starting to read more. And I think it's because I have more time sometimes at night when there's nothing on TV, I'll pick up a book and read. Sarah has been sending me some books and to read. And so, because she's a big reader. And so she'll send me a book and she'll say, "Read this and tell me what you think," And so she's been doing that. And the one book she sent me was a book that I got into it, and I just couldn't quit putting it down. But it was also it was a book that kind of brought up some questions and some concerns that I had when Bob and I separated. And so I was asking both my children about, "How did you feel about this? And did you feel this? And, were you angry?" And, and some of their answers surprised me. But some of them, they both felt like, when Bob and I separated, that they had each other, but they were also, Danielle especially, and Pat was kind of too, I think, frustrated that we weren't honest and open with them at the very beginning. But, I think more so I was hoping that, we could do counseling, or we could do something to save the marriage. But, he was not willing to do counseling. So it just didn't work out. So, I stepped up, and a lot of my direction was how I saw mom, even though it was different, but I saw mom, how she, was always there for all of us kids. And so that's what I just tried to do, was to be there for both my kids. But um now I'm kind of, reading some other books, but I don't know that they would be my favorite. So I'm hoping that next year I will find a couple books that, or a series of books that I can, read and, get into that. And so instead of, sitting here and either baking or, or, just uh, clean, or, I don't know, call a friend, that I could just sit and read a book for a bit. So,
Sure. Okay. How would you like to be remembered?
I would like to be remembered as I left this place, or I left this earth in a better place than I found it
That's very good.
when I was little. Um, and the reason I say that is because, especially growing up, I feel like mom and dad both made this place a better place than when, before they were here.
Yeah.
And so, I would like to be known as giving and understanding, and um, caring about people.
Well, I'd say you're probably got that one sewn up.
Yeah, I feel like I'm still working on it, but
Yeah.
but yeah.
Let's see. We kind of talked about this already, about favorite books. So you really have a favorite book of all that you enjoyed, or
My
you said
favorite book
Heidi?
is Heidi. I
Yeah. Okay.
really like Heidi. I like the Dr. Zeus series, as a
Oh,
kid. I
okay. Cool.
remember growing up, I liked that one. But and the other one that I really enjoyed was Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. You
Really
know,
good for
as a
you.
kid, as a kid book. I thought that was kind of a fun story. But
Yeah. See, I can remember Mom laying on my bed reading that to me.
yeah, and that's something that I tried to do, and I think I did it uh for a while with the kids, reading stories.
Sure.
Danielle and Keith are very into reading stories to Gabriel, and that's
Oh,
their
good.
nightly routine now, is
Good.
they read stories before he goes to bed.
Good.
So yeah.
Okay. Favorite music or song? Do you ever have a favorite music group?
My favorite music, and I that I've been listening to, and this year especially, is, Mary, did you know that
Okay, sure.
I like that one.
Good song.
Yeah. And I also like On Eagle's Wings,
That's a very good one. Yeah.
is another one of my favorites.
And generally, you have
And
Christian radio on in your car, right?
oh yeah, all the time. I don't really, I mean, right now they're still playing Christmas music on one of our stations out here. And so
Yay.
I've been enjoying that. But every time they play, Mary, did you know? I just love that song.
Yeah, it's a good
Um,
song.
it's one of my favorites. But yeah, On Eagle's Wings is another one of my favorites.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw on Facebook, somebody mentioned that they they kind of have a family history with the song "It Is Well with My Soul."
Yes,
Yeah, and I messaged back on that thread saying, yeah, in our family, that's known as that song.
yes, and that is that. I like the song, and I can sing it without tears streaming down my face. But it is a song that I think will always have a special memory for me.
Yeah. And
You know,
again, for those of us,
because
those people watching, that's just a song that was we sang with mom towards the end.
yes, and it seemed like we sang it quite often.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
loved it because we were harmonizing, and that is
Sure.
the one thing I do when we go over and we're having dinner at Todd and Cora's, and Danielle and Keith and I are there with Gabriel, and he'll play the piano, and I'll just start harmonizing on my own because
Good.
I like that. And I've been trying to get music back in my life a little bit, but I've noticed that since I had my stroke, that my voice gets tired.
Sure.
So I keep thinking I'm going to join like the choir eventually, but I don't quite know when that's going to happen, especially with COVID.
Yep. Well, we'll just hope for better news here.
Yeah,
Favorite Bible verse? You kind of mentioned that before we started. I think you said there's one from Jeremiah.
Jeremiah. Is it 9:11? No, 9. No.
I can't
Um,
remember what it is, but I've heard the one you mentioned.
yeah, yeah. For I know I have the plans to prosper. I like that one. Um, and I have them written down, but I can't quite remember all of them. But so that would probably be one of my very favorites right now because I know God has a plan for me and to prosper and in walks with me in this life.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to go. Okay, the next few ones are pretty easy. Where did you go to elementary school and things you remember about elementary school?
Okay, I went to elementary school in Newton,
Okay.
I believe. It was a new building. Um,
You could
and
walk there, right? I mean, yeah, it wasn't
I
that.
could, I could walk
Oh, could
from
you
our
walk
house,
there? Okay.
yeah, to Newton to the elementary. And then I think in one of my classes, it was at a church in Newton, it kind of going down a hill.
Huh.
Um, and then the rest of my elementary and junior high and high school was in Fayette.
Oh, okay.
Um,
So what'd you do in Grand Junction?
oh, in Grand Junction. I went to school in Dana, Iowa,
So what grades was that? Or were that?
second grade, first and second grade.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I was in second grade when Mary Beth passed away.
Okay.
And I remember in second grade is when I was learning to write. And I had this teacher that I was using my left hand, and she was getting very angry with me because she was putting me in a right-handed desk. And then I would switch the pencil over to my left hand, and she would keep me in from recess. And, she would be very upset with me because I was writing with my left hand and I was supposed to be writing with my right hand. So one day I went home and I was telling dad about it. That's the good thing about your dad being a superintendent or a
That is a good
principal.
thing.
Yeah, and so I told him about it, and he told the teacher, he said, if my daughter wants to write left-handed, you put her in a left-handed desk and you quit, disciplining her because she's using her left hand. And ever since then, I never had a problem.
Good deal.
So therefore, their dad helped me out. And I remember, doing basketball and track. Um,
So what?
uh, I
How old were you in Fayette? Then what grade?
I want to say I was in fourth grade,
Okay.
I think, third or
You,
fourth grade.
so you kind of
Fourth grade.
finished up elementary at Fayette, and then the rest of your years.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yeah. And so then I did track and I did band and I did jazz band and um, um,
This is junior high now.
yeah.
Okay.
And then I do remember, though, I have to say in Newton, I remember being in 4-H, and I was a top seller in selling 4-H candy bars or something, and I was
All
always so proud.
right.
You know? But or was it 4-H or was it Campfire Girls? Maybe it was Campfire Girls. Anyway, I did that. And then, when in Fayette, I was in Rainbow Girls because I tried 4-H and that bored me to tears. So I went to Rainbow Girls, and that was always fun, learning different parts. And I really had a good group of people, to get to know. And it was good. And then Grandma Rutt was always very excited, because
Oh,
she's
I
like,
bet she was.
they can go into Eastern Star, which I never did. And then, Mom got me into PEO out in Fayette when I was younger. And I came out here and never really found a group that I really like. So I haven't done that in years.
Sure.
But in high school, I just remember, I wasn't always very athletic. I was more musical, I think, than I was athletic. I would, help I don't know what you called them, like an assistant or something, like I would manager. Yeah. For like doing, filling the water and, picking up towels and doing stuff like that. But I do remember trying to play basketball, and I tried to do track, which I did, shot put and discus, that thing. But
you tell Keith that you were an athlete once.
I know he probably wouldn't believe it. But what else did I do? Yeah, I think I was just in like jazz band, pep band, concert band. And once I got out of high school, I just kind of told Mom I didn't want to play saxophone anymore. So she sold my saxophone. And it's been kind of funny because Keith keeps telling me, you should, get a saxophone and go do that again, or play the recorder, or, do something musical. And I'm like, no. So, I still have the dulcimer that Mom and I built when I was at Grandview. And so he keeps telling me, you should get the dulcimer out. I'm like, yes, well, it's probably way out of tune because I've never played it, for so long. And I found Mom's recorder in her dresser that I still have. I could play around with that too if I wanted to.
There you go. When you get tired of reading those books.
That's right. Yeah. Because.
Okay. Favorite subjects or teachers in school? Not math.
I was just gonna say it wasn't my math, and I can tell you it wasn't Mrs. Pickett, because she was the one that
not your favorite teacher.
She was not my favorite. Mrs. Colvin.
Oh, she was a cool teacher.
Mrs. Colvin and Mrs. Baker, I think, were my favorite teachers in high school.
Who was Mrs. Baker?
Mrs. Baker was my social studies teacher and art teacher.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And Mrs. Colvin was just, she was just awesome. I liked her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. She was home ec. She was trying to teach me how to sew, which, I'm not a sewer, but, but yeah, just in cooking, and, I enjoyed that. But those are the two that come to my mind, that I really liked. And I want to say, I think Mr. Nyhart or Mr. Sykes maybe was my biology teacher in Fayette. But I think my two favorite teachers were Mrs. Baker and Mrs. Colvin.
Yes, it's like when I got to high school and Nyhart was still the principal, and I ended up being a manager for the baseball team. And then I kind of got to know him a little better on that level. And then I wasn't so scared of him, because at first I was like, oh my gosh, because he had a paddle in his office.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And you remember Dad had a paddle in his office.
Oh, did Dad have a paddle in his office? I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Dad had a paddle, and he'd have to, when people would come in, I don't know if he ever used it, but he had one. But
wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
you can answer this one if you want to, or you can pass on it. What were the hardest choices you ever had to make?
I think one of my hardest choices was letting my marriage go. Um, but uh, um, I don't. Um, that one, I'm just not sure. I mean, there's been a couple of, one was when we had to, let mom finally go, and it wasn't really my choice. I think it was everybody's choice, but it was hard to finally say, okay, take the oxygen off. That was a hard choice for me, even though I knew it was the right choice, but it was a very hard choice. And the other thing was, just trying to figure out, when I was in Des Moines and I wanted to at least do something. I didn't want to just stay where I was at and moving so
Yeah, see,
far.
to me, I thought that's what you're going to say.
Was moving away from my family.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I love it out here, and I would not ever leave because I would not want to be away from, Danielle and Keith or Gabriel. But um, that was, a hard choice. And then to find out, mom said that it was hard for her when she saw me drive down the street on 37th Street with the U-Haul and seeing you drive away. She said that was really hard. And it was.
Well, you're a very courageous person in my book.
Mm-hmm. I try.
Because you've had some hard choices, and I think you've done pretty well.
Yeah. Um,
I know your kids would be very proud of you.
yeah. I just, it was just hard because I had to figure out, a lot of things, and kind of grew up fast. But yeah, that was um, moving, thinking, at the beginning, oh, this is going to be exciting, and I'm going to have a different life and I'll be out on my own. But it was very hard, especially when I got out here and didn't have a job. And, I tried to remember what I had grown up with mom and dad of, you know, okay, you've got a decision to make. What are you going to do? You can't just sit here and do nothing. And so I do remember that, even in any choice that I have is, you know, I have to make a choice and be okay with it. But yeah.
Getting towards the end.
Oh, good. Because I'm hoping I'm answering all the questions correct.
You're A+. You bet. Do you remember any advice or comments that had a big impact on how you lived your life?
Mm, I think the only thing I have is, if you're going to do something, you do it right the first time, and you give it 100%, not just 90%.
That's good advice.
And because I used to hear that from mom, if you're going to do something, do it right. Don't just do it, you know, halfway, and do the right thing. Be honest, um, put everything into it.
Yeah, I know that's when I'm judging music groups, you know, and I'm pretty sure I'm not the only judge that says this. That's the one that bugs me the most is that people come to play for me, and then
Hmm.
I can see they have not prepared.
Right,
Like,
right,
why are you wasting my time?
right, right, right. And I think, I would hear that from mom, and, you know, I'm sure dad would have said the same thing, you know. Um, if you're going to do something, do it and practice, and, do it the right way. Don't just think you could just get by. Um, And, I hope that, I mean, I feel like I have raised my children that way as well.
Yeah. Okay. If you could change something about yourself, what would it be?
Honestly, at this point in my life, if I could change not being so anxious and my anxiety, um, I would. And I feel like a lot of it, has been done to, I've gone, just with losing mom.
Yeah.
I feel like, if I could just get rid of the anxious and just enjoy life more, I would do that. And I think that's one thing that I would love to change if I could.
Yeah. Whatever answer you give is the right answer.
Yeah, I just feel like, if I just wasn't so anxious and just worried about everything, you know, just relax and be, I mean, I be calm and collected like you are, Tom. I mean, I feel like, you just kind of take things in stride, and that's how you've always been,
Yeah.
you know,
I don't know if Tierney will agree with you on that one, but okay.
because I feel like, you just like, well, okay, whatever. And you've always been that way. I mean, I think that's one thing that I have to say about you is you just kind of go with the flow and take things that it is. And okay, whatever, and that sometimes I would be like, how can he be so calm and collected through all of this?
You know, I mean,
You know,
again, I credit mom with a lot of that.
because that's the one thing I think, going back to maybe one of the memories with you is you just kind of go with the flow. And if we're going to do it, okay, let's do it. And, you know, and you just make the best of every situation. And I admire that in you.
Thank you. I mean, I just had after Dad passed, and Dave and John were kind of doing their college stuff, and you were kind of doing your high school stuff, and Mom and I just had a lot of time at home together at Fayette, and to me
Hmm.
that's some of the most precious time I've got in my head, and
Hmm.
so if I come across that way, I think I get a lot of that from, like you said. I kind of think, how would Mom do this?
Hmm. Right. Right. And I feel like, yeah, that I couldn't agree with you more. But yeah, I forgot that. Yeah, you and Mom probably had quite a bit of time, in Des Moines,
Yeah,
together.
yeah, yeah.
And but you just have always been that way, where you're just kind of, calm and collected. And it's like, whatever, don't worry about it, and I just wish sometimes I could be that way.
Yeah, like I say, I don't know if Tierney will agree with you on that one, but at least I try to do my best.
Well, I think you do very well at that, Tom.
Okay, last one. Then you can throw in wherever else you want to do some pictures there. Stories about Danielle.
Oh, Danielle. She is so usually, I mean, she's so happy. She's so giving. She's to me, she likes to
Obviously,
always be busy.
and your kids were all born in Denver, obviously.
Yes. Danielle was born at Lutheran, and so was Pat. And they're 5 years apart from one another. Danielle is just always been somebody that, she's always got to be busy. She doesn't, I don't know if that's the case as much, but, family is very important. But she's always, she was in choir, she was in plays, she was in, um, yeah,
Swimming.
swimming. Yeah, swimming was a big deal. And she loved youth group, and she um just was just always busy, always liked girl things, always just, if she had to sit and, you know she could watch movies, but then she'd get bored with that. She'd have to be up going and doing something. And she's still to this day one that just constantly likes to be busy. I think, because of with Gabriel, I think there are times that she needs to have some downtime, but she, for the most part, she likes to go have coffee with her friends, or she likes to go hiking, or she likes to go biking, or um, they're involved in their church. I mean, they're just, they love the outdoors. And so she has always been that way. She loves children. She has just got this big heart. And, but I have to say, the one thing with Danielle is she always has to be busy. She likes that business. And so, and she's very crafty. She loves to design things, and she has this Cricut machine right now, and she just loves to do things on it and give it to people. She's very giving. And she's also sharing her story, to other people that are going through some of the things that she's going through, with Gabriel. She and Keith, they always, I mean, she's always had a very strong faith. She loved going on mission trips and helping people. And she's just, I'm so blessed and lucky that I'm her mom.
Okay, let's go to her better half, Keith.
Keith kind of keeps her grounded sometimes, when things are getting a little rough. I mean, he loves to be outside, he loves to run, he loves to hike, rock climbing. They used to do, I don't think they do that as much now, but they both really enjoyed rock climbing. They're very involved in their church. They're both just very giving, trying to, make their family a strong family. And when they do have time together, they go on hikes. They have quite a few different places they like to go, and just to get away. But he loves his son just like Danielle does. He's a great husband. He's a great son-in-law. He likes to give me a hard time, about things that I'm doing or choices that I'm making.
And he likes to give June a hard time too.
Yes. Yeah, he loved mom. And, every time mom, if he would come in, mom would just light up, she would just love to be around, and to be here. And she always would get upset when they didn't come over, as much as she thought that they should, but I kept reminding her that, they have a life and they're busy and, well, I know, but they should be coming over here more.
And that sounds like our mother.
Yes. But she would ask, or Keith would ask mom about things, like he'd go downstairs and look at the scrapbooks, and he'd bring a scrapbook up and he'd say, oh, now, Nana, tell me about this picture, and the one thing he still remembers, he goes, I will never forget the day I asked her about something, and she said that something, she had mucked cows before, and he goes, when did you ever do that? And she goes, well, I never did, but he goes, she was trying to get me to believe that she, was a farm girl, and I knew better. And so but Keith, he loves to read, loves to, likes to be, I think, not as busy as Danielle, but he likes to do things as a family, and he likes to have that time with just the three of them. But
Yeah.
he's very supportive and very, they talk it out when they need to decide something. He's a good sounding board for Danielle. So they're a good couple.
Yeah. And anything you want to throw in about Gabriel? Other
Gabriel
than that, he's your
is
favorite person, I know.
Yes, he's my favorite, but he's my hero. He has gone through so much, and he knows how to charm the nurses at children's, and he loves music and loves stories. And I love to read stories to him, but he really likes his talker. He's just he's gone through a lot in this life, but this is all he knows. And so he knows that his mommy and daddy love him, and he knows his grandparents love him, and his aunt and uncles. He knows he has a good support group, and we all love him.
Yeah.
And um, he's a great little guy.
That he is.
And
I
he
wish
will
I, I
tell
wish,
you
I wish I lived
if
closer.
yes, and if things are not working right, or he's upset about something, even though he does not speak, he lets you know it is not okay in his world. And so, and when he goes to preschool, he tries to see, if he can get away with things, even in preschool. And the other day it looked like he was having a seizure and his head dropped, and so they were like, oh, okay, buddy, come back. And he lifts his head up and he starts laughing, and it was like he was like, okay, I got you. So he really is, he's such a happy little boy. And for everything that he goes through, you really don't hear him crying much, and when you do, you know that it's a pain that's hurting him. So I mean, he's just a blessing to all of us, and he's just a neat little guy.
Yeah. Patrick.
Patrick is has really grown a lot. He is now a real estate person. They're getting ready to move to Washington, and he and Sarah are going to be living out there. They're looking forward to being in cold weather with snow, and he wants to still keep with his real estate. And so that'll be good. He has a great face. He and Sarah both, they've got a good support group. He loves swimming. He's been playing, baseball. He loves all sorts of sports. And so he is my athletic child. He has always loved sports. I told him that in his next life, he should probably be a sports announcer, because, you can ask him anything sports related and he'll tell you. But he loves he likes to help people. He really is he and Danielle both are very caring people. And I'm so glad that they both had a good upbringing as far as in youth group, because they got very involved, and they both got to go on mission trips and help people live in other parts of the country. um, uh, but Pat really, he's enjoyed being a swim coach for high schoolers, and also a swim coach for a professional, I guess you call it, league, competitive, and he's really enjoyed that. But he's also, like I said, this summer he tried his hand at baseball and really liked it. He and Sarah both they like to be outside. They like to go hiking. They're getting into camping. They have had lots of adventures. They've gone, and they love dogs. They've got a dog. They've got 2 dogs and a cat. And they just, I don't get out and see them as much as I would like to, but, they keep very active in, all of the real estate, the sports, the helping people. But he really tried to help some swimmers grow in how he was brought up in swimming, because swimming was a big part for Gabe, for Pat.
Yeah.
And when he went to college, he was in on a scholarship. He got a scholarship to go to Asbury, and so that was a big deal for him. And has made really a lot of friends, and still has some good friendships with his swimmers, and traveling with them like I did, with college and in choir, he was able to travel to different, states and do swim competitions. And so I always enjoyed when I could go and I could cheer for both my children. And as both of my children would say, they always knew when mom was there, because they could always hear me. And Danielle and Pat both said, Mom, I could even be swimming underwater and I could still hear you yelling. So I knew you were there cheering us on because you were so loud. I mean, people knew that when my children were swimming, they knew
Good.
I was there.
Good deal. And last
But
one,
yeah,
Sarah.
is Sarah. And Sarah works at Disney. Sarah has a big heart. She loves horses, so she's very involved in horses, and training horses. And she has I think some kids out in California that she's been working with on horse riding or training them. So she's very involved in that. She works in HR at Disney. I don't really know too much about what she does at Disney, but I know she's really moved herself quite fast up the ladder with Disney in HR. But she's a big animal lover, loves horses, loves reading. She is a big reader. She's also a swimmer, because that's where she and Pat met, was on the swim team. And she's involved in their church as well, and she works with the little kids. So she's Pat works with the, I think, like getting this set ready and getting, like putting up and tearing down, I think is what he does at their church. And then Sarah works with the little kids. So she's very involved with that as well. So, but she has a big heart. She loves to cook. She's even, I found out she's made me a quilt, and she made Gabriel some pillowcases for his pillow that he uses when
Nice.
he is lying down. Yeah. And she did all the embroidery, and she's sewn. So she's quite the sewer, but she's also a quilter. And so she's
Neat.
very talented, and she's
Yeah.
also very crafty as well. So um, she's she and Pat are a good team.
And hopefully, if we get all this COVID stuff over, you can get out and see him pretty soon.
Yeah, I was talking to Pat because he calls me every week, and we have really good conversations as to what's going on, and what he's doing, and what's happening. And so once they find a house, I'm hoping that at some point, and the vaccine comes, that I could maybe get out there to Washington and see them. And then I told Pat next year for sure, I'm sure COVID will be over by next Christmas, so that I could go out for Christmas next year. And I'll either be going to California or I'll be going to Washington.
Yeah,
we'll see,
good.
depending on what the decides. So yeah, so I wish I could see them more, but I talk with them, and they this year sent me books that, with pictures of the different years of their marriage. And so I've really been enjoying seeing all of the, the hikes and the camping trips and the going to wine country. And, Pat likes to surf. So that's been another big thing. And, Sarah likes to go and take the dogs, and they go down and play in the water while Pat surfs. So, that's been fun for them too. So they're having lots of fun.
Nice. Okay, so you got some pictures to show?
I think. Let's see. Okay. Okay, here's some. Let's see. Here is me when in 1958. I don't know if you can see them very well.
Come down. Almost. Got it. Almost. Try again.
Can you see them?
Yeah, there you go. That's better.
Yeah. So there's Mom. We're celebrating my birthday in 1958.
Okay.
And then here's a wonderful picture of our mother.
Oh, that is a nice one. Yep.
Yeah, isn't that nice? I don't have the date on that one. And this is another picture. I think it's a wonderful picture of, oopsie, I go this way,
Oh, at
of mom at 37th
37th Street.
Street.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, there's that one.
With her
And
wind
then this
chime.
was when we were at, yes, and this was when we were at the Shepherd of the Hills Christmas,
Sure.
when mom would come out.
Nice.
Yeah, and then, oh darn. Okay, and then here's a picture of, oh, this one doesn't have a picture of you.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, that was in the spring of 1958.
Very good.
And I think, and this is another one of my favorites.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And here is Dad when he graduated with
Oh, that's a good
Grandma
one. Grandma
Clinton.
Rutt.
Grandma Rudd, yep.
Yeah, probably at the Drake, I suppose.
At Drake. Yeah. And then I found this one because I think you have this one, right, Tom?
Yep.
Yeah. With
Granddad
John.
and John. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was good. And then I have one more.
Yeah, Granddad won a prize for that.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, and that's how it got published in the magazine, because they picked that photo for his use of color and stuff like that.
Okay. And then this one is Susan and Tommy. Charles Raymond read hard at work with his folks.
Oh, interesting.
Can you see that very well?
Kind of. Yeah.
And then, let's see, which is the other one? This one I think is great of Mom.
Very good.
Yeah, so those are the ones that I found that I thought I would share, that I found in the book of oh,
Yes, on the bunk bed.
yeah, that bunk bed that we had for so long. So other than that, yeah, I was looking through some of the pictures and I thought, oh, I should share some of those. But
All right.
other than that, this is my life.
Ta-da! You did it! Yay!
Yay!
All right. Well, very good job, Sue. I'm very proud to call you my sister, and yes, I love you.
Oh, good, and I love you too, Tom.
All right.
And I liked how you did this thing for our Christmas New Year's Eve. I thought this was a great way to end 2020 by finishing up my life of how crazy this life has been.
Yes, and you can add to it later if you want to. I'm going to stop the recording, so hold on just a second.
Okay.